The story starts with us seeing our main character, Park Chunjul, scaring away a few of his classmates from his sheer presence. However, he didn't intend to do so, but his physical presence is good enough to intimidate most people. We learn that Chunjul is a strong person who has learned mixed martial arts and knows how to fight properly. Alongside that, he also beat up 10 guys on his own on the first day of college. So, his goal to be just another average kid isn't coming along. Just then, he is called into the main office by the teachers. It is there that Chunjul learns of his father's passing away. Later, Chunjul has his father's possessions handed over to him, which includes a phone and a four-cut photo. We learn that Chunjul doesn't know his father, and his mother also died when he was just 4. So, he was brought up by his father's friend, Mr. Guangchul. Right then, as Chunjul is playing with his father's old phone, he gets a call. Though initially shocked, he picks up the call. The person who called claimed to be the owner of the phone, and Chunjul thought that the person was a scammer and ended up talking roughly with him. As the other person asks where Chunjul is, angry Chunjul tells him about the location and invites him to come and take the phone. Suddenly, Chunjul is shocked by the area around him changing. Gone were the skyscrapers and instead were replaced by old-looking food stalls, and people were dressed and talking in a very outdated manner. At that moment, Chunjul is met by an aggressive-looking man who talks aggressively. The man asks Chunjul if he is the one, to which Chunjul denies having the phone, despite never being asked to have a phone. The guy discovers Chunjul hiding the phone and relays the information to another man. An attractive-looking man arrives, and Chunjul notices that the man very much looks like his father from the picture he saw before. At that very moment, Chunjul is met with a vicious left cross from the man called Park Si-hoo. Chunjul reminisces about Mr. Guangchul talking about how things were so fun in the past. People gather around to see the ongoing fight. We see Chunjul using some Brazilian jiu-jitsu as he locks Si-hoo's right arm into a well-maneuvered arm bar. Chunjul thinks that he has gotten the better of Si-hoo, as putting on a submission on a striker is the best way to subdue them. He wonders just what has happened, but he knows that the person is his father, who had abandoned him as a kid. He is extra motivated to inflict damage with his armbar, which he names the Father Twister. It is then that he once again remembers Mr. Guangchul talking about his past and just how rowdy everything was back then, but they never feared anyone because Chunjul's father was with them. Just then, we see Park Si-hoo digging down deep to hoist up Chunjul and slam him down hard on the street. This breaks off the submission and enables Si-hoo to retrieve the phone and work away. As the strongest man in Gandong is walking away, a beat-up Chunjul realizes just how talented his father was, but he still can't give up. So we see Chunjul getting up and asking his father for a proper fight. Si-hoo, being one not to back down, accepts the challenge and takes his usual boxing stance. Chunjul sees this and wonders just who uses boxing in this day and age, before opting for a more open grappling stance. Soon the fight commences between father and son. The fight starts with a quick jab from the southpaw Si-hoo, before a flurry of left and right punches from him. Chunjul is taken aback by the speed and power, but he knows what to do and sticks to his forward-out approach. Chunjul dodges an incoming punch and takes down his father before securing a full mount, ready for some ground and pound. We then see Chunjul thinking about his memories, how a poisonous gas leakage had killed his mother right after his father left home, and since that day he had never seen his dad. This motivates him to beat up his careless father, but it's his father who has the full mount now. As we see Chunjul being devastated by a barrage of punches, we learn that Si-hoo had reversed the mount from Chunjul by performing a neckbridge rollover, a move used by experienced jiu-jitsu and amateur wrestling practitioners. As Si-hoo gets up after beating Chunjul to a pulp, we see a sneaky Chunjul running away from the scene with the phone that he stole back while taking the punishment. Si-hoo realizes this and gets mad. He invites his entire group to gather and look for Chunjul. Meanwhile, we see Chunjul running away to a nearby cyber cafe. There he uses a computer to log into the internet and check the exact date. He finds out that he has traveled back to 2003. He wonders just what triggered this weird time-traveling case and why it happened. It is then that he thinks of calling someone in the future. He checks the phone and calls the number of Mr. Guangchul, but It is the Guangchul of 2003 who picks up the call and is very mad. Chunjul hangs up the call and wonders if he can call the future Guanghul by using his new phone number. He remembers that Guangchul had made him memorize his number just in case of an emergency. Chunjul dials the number and calls Guangchul of the future. The 40-year-old boxing gym director picks up the call and Chunjul explains the situation. Guangchul is surprised and concludes that it is a scammer calling just like Chunjul previously. Chunjul provides details of the recent dates of Guangchul to prove it is him. Guangchul is still skeptical, but it is then that we see the 18-year-old Guangchul enter the cyber cafe along with his friends to take out Chunjul. Chunjul makes fun of the 18-year-old Guangchul's looks. While he is making fun of him, Guangchul from the past tries to throw a right cross to Chunjul, but is intercepted with a leg sweep into a punch. This leaves the 2003 Guangchul in an injured state, and it also puts a permanent scar on his head, which can be seen in present-day Guangchul too. This makes the present-day Guangchul believe in Chunjul somewhat, and right then, another scar shows up on his head, thanks to the attack dealt to his past self by Chunjul. This makes Guangchul believe in the time-traveling story, and he tells Chunjul that he can save his dad if he can impact the future. This infuriates Chunjul as he doesn't like his father. However, Guangchul also says that he can save his mother through this, and at that very moment, a beautiful young lady comes face to face with Chunjul. Seeing her triggers Chunjul's memories of his mother, and he comes to tears realizing he just met his mother from the past. Minhui, Chunjul's mother, gets mad at him for staring at her like that. Chunjul is a bit wavered by how rough his mom is behaving, but he remembers his mom being very good with knives, so it makes sense. However, his mom always treated him nicely as a kid. At that moment, Choi Mungyu, one of Sihu's friends, takes Chunjul out with a wicked, lariat-esque move. Chunjul's head hits the floor and makes a sickening thud. Minhui tells Mungyu that he could have killed Chunjul with that, but Chunjul gets up from behind, visually angry from the attack that interrupted his little reunion with his mother. And just when he is about to attack Mungyu, Sihu comes from behind and hits Chunjul with a left hook and drops him again before leaving with his phone. Chunjul is left unconscious, and when he wakes up, he realizes he is lying on Minhui's lap. Chunjul gets startled and sits up. Minhui asks him how Chunjul knows so much about Sihu, and her name too. Chunjul is dumbstruck, and just when he is about to admit to being her son from the future, Minhui interrupts him and says that she is sure that Chunjul is a relative of Sihu. Chunjul then lies about being a hidden relative of Sihu who has never met him, and that he is worried about Sihu and how he is living with his grandmother. This makes Minhui emotional as she cares about Sihu and wants him to have more people to fall back on. Chunjul then asks just what Minhui likes about Sihu. Minhui is shy at first, but admits to liking Sihu for his good looks and strength. She further says that she can't pinpoint what she likes about him because she just likes him. Chunjul asks if she will marry Sihu and have children. Minhui says she would like just one child because she wants to love the kid to the fullest. This makes Chunjul tear up and he wonders just why he is stuck in the past, but now that he is here, he must save his mother at all costs. He then says that he has to apologize to Sihu to Minhui and gets up. This is the plan for him to get the phone and call Guangchul. Meanwhile, in the present day, Guangchul has found valuable information and is waiting for a call from Chunjul. Sihu, on the other hand, discovers an unknown number on his phone and decides to call it. We see Guangchul picking up the call, but Sihu doesn't get to talk to him because he is interrupted by a huge group of people named the Sumsil fam. Meanwhile, we see Minhui taking Chunjul to the arcade run by Mungyu and his mother. She tells how this place is their haven, and how they have all their names imprinted on the floor, as the place means a lot to them all. Chunjul then meets Mungyu's mother, who looks a lot like her son. As they're going through the introduction phase, Minhui talks with the Guangchul of her time and learns that all of them are having a huge meeting with the Samsil fam. Minhui is mad that they're still talking after so many rejections and decides to go to the scene of the meeting. Meanwhile, Mungyu's mother greets Chunjul and gives him a can of soda. She talks about how the kids have helped her set up this place and run it because they're Mungyu's friends and Mungyu intends to be a good and responsible son. This makes Chunjul think that the guys are good at heart. Chunjul is then given coins to play one of the arcade games, and he decides to do so. The game is functioning quite well and Chunjul is enjoying what is ancient to him. It is then that we see another customer lash out at Mungyu's mother, saying that he is losing money due to her having faulty game machines and telling her to change them. On the other hand, we see the Samsil fam telling Sihu and the group to add a specific slot game to their arcade machines. They say that they'll be the ones maintaining it. However, Si-hoo is against putting anything gambling related on the machines. This makes the Samsilfam says that they'll have to change their machine. Cut to the arcade store. We see that the angry customers are members of the Samsilfam and they've started to destroy the machines. Si-hoo and Mungyu rush back to the scene. We see just how much hard work Mungyu and his mother had to do for them to establish this arcade, and how the other friends have helped them in doing so. However, upon arriving they see that the arcade isn't much damaged, and that all of the attackers have been dealt with by just Park Chunjul. One of the attackers tries to get back up, but Chunjul lands a lead hook to take him out for good. After helping them out, Chunjul decides to go away, but he is stopped by Si-hoo, who asks whether or not Chunjul is also from the future. This scares Chunjul a lot as he thinks that Si-hoo has figured out that he is a time traveler. However, he soon discovers that Si-hoo thinks that he is a student from a school called Future High, and Si-hoo thinks he is here to form a coalition with them, as he is being bombarded by questions regarding his identity and background. Chunjul turns the table by saying that Si-hoo and others should instead be thanking him for saving the arcade, and that if Si-hoo wants to know who Chunjul is, then he should give his phone to Chunjul, as he will use it call someone who would confirm Chunjul's identity for them. Just then, Minhui comes in to say that Chunjul doesn't need to do that, and that Minhui backs Chunjul. Later, we see Minhui telling everyone that she can't tell exactly who Chunjul is, but that she trusts Chunjul, and that if he had planned all this, he wouldn't have fought Si-hoo at first. Chunjul tells everyone that he is from the US, something he lied about to Minhui to get her sympathy and trust. He told her that he had to hide his relationship with Si-hoo because of his parents. She then tells everyone that most importantly, Chunjul saved the arcade and made sure Mungyu's mom didn't get hurt. This makes Mungyu come forward and offer a hand of friendship to Chunjul, and they both bury their hatchet. Then Minhui tells everyone to introduce themselves, and they do. However, Si-hoo still doesn't trust Chunjul and asks him to prove himself with the call as he said before, and Chunjul calls Guangchul to do so. We see Guangchul in a worried state. He says that something has gone extremely wrong. Chunjul says how he had saved the arcade, to which Guangchul says the destruction of the arcade is what led to Mungyu becoming a police to investigate crimes. However, now that the arcade is saved, Mungyu has gone on to become a lifeless gamer, and all the investigations he did on Minhui's case is gone. He then tells Chunjul that he has to make sure that the arcade is destroyed. So Chunjul now has to figure out how he needs to destroy the arcade even though he doesn't want to, knowing all the significance of the place. Just when he is processing all this new information, Park Si-hoo snatches the phone away from him and starts to talk with Jen Guangchul of the future. Upon first hearing the voice of his dear friend, Guangchul tears up and thinks about how cool Si-hoo was as a person. Even though it is hard for him to comprehend, Guangchul starts talking to Si-hoo and tells him that he is a very close and old friend of Si-hoo's dad. Si-hoo is kinda iffy about this, but Guangchul starts spilling more details about their relationship, using his relationship as leverage. He talks about Si-hoo's childhood friend Guangchul and their adventures. He also talks about the food Si-hoo's grandmother made, and that was enough for Si-hoo to believe him and allows Chunjul to live the night at his place. Chunjul follows Si-hoo to his home but also feels tired from all the uphill roads of the past and the fact that he had several fights the day, including one that was against 10 people. Upon entering the house, Chunjul feels weird about the bad living conditions that they have and also about Si-hoo having the latest phone model. As they settle down to have their dinner, they're watching the news which says Park Ji-sing, one of South Korea's all-time great footballers, is a player from PSV Eindhoven. This makes Chunjul say that Ji-sing plays for Manchester United, a club Ji-sing would later join in his career, which makes Si-hoo tell him to not spit nonsense. As their dinner goes along, Si-hoo asks whether Chunjul is close to his father or not, to which he replies by saying that he barely has any memories of his father. Si-hoo says that he still feels jealous because Chunjul at least has someone to call a father. Chunjul wonders how this is the first time he is opening up to someone about his dad, and that person is his dad from the past. Even though he felt like punching him when they first met, he is slowly understanding him. After the dinner, Chunjul goes out telling Si-hoo that it is a part of his regular schedule. As he goes for a jog, he feels weird about just what he has experienced in a day, from going to the past, fighting his father, saving the arcade, to now being given the duty to destroy it again. If he doesn't do it, he won't be able to save his mother, because it has caused her murder investigation files to disappear. However, he is fairly confident that he can save his mother because he knows what will happen in the future, like the Park Ji-sung transfer. But he can't overuse it because it'll cause a big butterfly effect like the one with the arcade. Just as he arrives near the arcade, Chunjul sees the guys from Samsilfam, whom he had beaten up before, but now they are with a rough-looking man who triggers some sort of memory for him from back when he was a kid. He hides from them and tries to think of who that person is, but it is not long before the rough-looking man finds Chunjul and approaches him. Chunjul is scared right away by the person and panics. Many of the group recognize Chunjul from the earlier fight he had with Park Si-hoo. One of the other guys tried to tell the rough-looking man about how Chunjul was the one who single-handedly beat up 10 of them. But that guy was punched right in the temple by the rough-looking man, taking him out. He says how the guy was bragging about getting beaten up and how he didn't like it. He then tells Chunjul that he looks like someone who works out and can fight, so he has a proposal for him. The man then proceeds to work Chunjul to a place with no one around, and they eventually arrive at a dark and empty warehouse. There he tells Chunjul that he knows that Chunjul saved the arcade due to ulterior motives. He thinks Chunjul is from another area trying to take over Gandong, but he doesn't care about it. He instead proposes that Chunjul join his side in destroying the arcade. That way, Chunjul can earn money from their slot machine business and also take over Gandong from Park Si-hoo. Chunjul agrees knowing that this is his best chance to destroy the arcade, but he asks the person how he will destroy the arcade now that they've already tried once and failed. He says that they're used to sucking out the life of their enemies. They'll simply keep attacking them until they give up and lose all hope. Chunjul realizes that this must have happened after he saved the arcade. They kept on attacking them until one day the arcade crumbled. He learned from Guangchul that Mengyu went lifeless after being hit on the head, and he realizes that it must have happened during one of the attacks. He feels sorry for making the future worse than it already was and vows to fix it. He tells the person that he is ready, but he wants them to attack the arcade at that very moment because no one is around. The person laughs and tells everyone to turn the light on. It is then revealed that the warehouse is full of his people. He tells Chunjul that if he had disagreed with his offer, they would have killed him right away. They then move on towards the arcade to destroy it. Chunjul is okay with it because, with no one present, it will be easy to destroy the arcade without causing anyone to get physically hurt. Just as they're about to proceed, Minhui grabs Chunjul's arm, asking him just what he is doing alone at night. This makes the rough-looking person approach Minhui and talk to her rudely and inappropriately. He asks weird questions about Minhui and Si-hoo's relationship, and Chunjul thinks that it must be one of his mom's lovers. Chunjul then creates separation between the two, trying to move on with the plan, but just at that moment, Minhui spits on the face of the man, calling him Shintao-gi and asking just how long will he keep living a life like this. This heats up the situation as Shintao-gi gets mad. Despite getting angry at Minhui for spitting at him, Shintao-gi doesn't attack her. Instead, he calls her a whore, which angers Minhui and even Chunjul, but he manages to keep it under control to move forward. Next up, we see Mengyu and his mother cleaning up the mess that the goons made previously and talking about what to do. Mengyu wants to report these thugs to the police, however, his mother doesn't want him to do that, as that might cause more issues in the future. However, at that moment, we see the thugs enter the scene again to start the destruction. Mengyu rushes to them, but is shocked to see a guy with a helmet wearing the same jacket as Park Chunjul. Mengyu uses his judo skills to his fullest to take down the helmet-wearing thug. He stomps his head to break the visor, and to his surprise, it is not Park Chunjul. We learn that Chunjul is not going to be directly involved, but instead will be keeping tabs on what happens outside and inform them when needed. But they took his jacket as collateral just in case of a turn from Chunjul. We then see two thugs approaching Chunjul with baseball bats. However, Mengyu isn't one to back down, so he wants to fight. But the thug uses a baseball bat to hit Mengyu in the midsection. Mengyu tries to retaliate but is struck down by several baseball bat blows. He is hit on the neck, back, and head with the bat till he is struck down. Meanwhile, the other thugs are destroying the arcade machines one by one. One of the thugs also pushes away Mengyu's mother. Mengyu is broken down as he is left helpless with no ability to do anything. But just at that moment, Chunjul comes in to tell everyone that the police have arrived. This causes panic among the thugs, as they quickly evacuate the arcade. We then see a flashback with Chunjul thinking that the arcade doesn't need to be destroyed as long as Mengyu becomes a police. But Mengyu needs a reason to become the police, so he orchestrates this act to show the power of the police in protecting the people from these thugs. Back on, we see Chunjul telling Mengyu that he needs to become a police officer to protect his mother and the things he cherishes, because these thugs are scared of the police. We then see two thugs from before coming back, angry from knowing that Chunjul lied about the police. But this time, Mengyu takes them both by the skull and slams them straight onto the floor. Mengyu then vows to become whatever is necessary to protect his mother and the arcade. As more and more of the thugs come back in, we see Mengyu taking them all out with his judo skills and stiff lariats. We then see Taiki talking to himself about how strong Mengyu is. But behind him stands Chunjul. Taiki squares up to him, ready to take him on for the double cross. However, Chunjul is ready to beat up Taiki for what he has said before. He asks Taiki to say what he has said to Minhui again. We then see Chunjul taking a fighting stance, promising to hurt Taiki for what he said to his mother.